All right, I guess I have a little bit of a service to give to you guys, a little bit of a responsibility with the platform that we have here currently. Not a Bionicle video, although I might show something Bionicle related in here. Rather, this video is about small creators here on YouTube. If you were someone who watches this channel with the aspiration of becoming a small creator on your own, then hi, welcome to the community, by the way. I try as much as possible to be as transparent as possible about my process, and maybe there are more videos I can put out on that in the future. But I also have the idea for a series that I think can sort of work as a word of warning for small creators and people in desperate situations. Here's the thing. I've been in those situations in the past, and so this pertains to myself as well. In essence, it's sort of a word of warning from somebody who's been in one of these situations. So specifically, this is about scams. More specifically, if I break this down into several different videos, this is about scams within certain types of industries and how you can sort of spot, let's just say, the red flags, right? So I will talk a little bit about a story here in just a minute, but one thing I wanted to mention is when you are a small creator here on YouTube, you might have the curiosity, at the very least, to look up different services like TubeBuddy or vidIQ, something like that. And here's the thing. I've mentioned them in the past before. I do think that they can offer good advice. However, oftentimes the advice is not presented in a way that's honest, because these channels service as one thing specifically. They make money for the people that work those jobs, right? These channels at the end of the day are a career for these people, and that makes sense, of course. I get it. I have nothing wrong with people who make their money from YouTube, but I do have something wrong with people who prey upon others in desperate situations. And that's specifically what this series is about, because desperation to me is a human condition. It spans much further than your lifespan, but rather, since people have been around, since the internet has been around, and long before, desperation has always been there. And there's always a group of people willing to take advantage of your situation. So what I wanted to mention here specifically before we get into the main topic of this video is services like vidIQ, services like TubeBuddy will give you good information if you can parse through what is real and kind of what is nonsense or what is fluffed, if you will. But oftentimes, they are more than willing to contradict themselves, even within the same video or 1, 2, 3 videos apart, right? Which is already weird and should feel like a red flag, because it is. I can't tell you how many videos that I have seen from them, and I don't really go out of my way to watch them because I don't use their services, but I still do a lot of research, and I often do so in incognito windows, which I'll talk about here in a second. But the research that I do often leads me to realizing that a lot of these channels, they don't care. The video is one single package. It's the one package that they know if you're watching it right now, they can guarantee they can keep your eyes on it. They don't know if you're going to check out their channel, check out any of their other videos, so they don't care if the videos are tied together, right? If they all say the same thing or if they contradict each other. And I've watched so many videos that have talked about why you need to make your thumbnails as good as possible and why you need to make your thumbnails as crappy as possible, why you need your space to look aesthetically pleasing, why you don't want your space, and so on and so forth. And it's annoying, but again, the reason for this is because it's click-worthy nonsense, right? All of this is stuff. Here's the thing. One of the reasons that that services like this are advertising a ton on YouTube is because they make a lot of money from what they do, and because the niche on YouTube of financial advice or creating a YouTube channel, which somewhat tie together, and again, I'll talk about that probably in a separate video further down the road, but these all pay really well. Like, here's what I'm saying. So with YouTube specifically, there's something called CPM and RPM. I'm not going to get into too much of that because we are not a channel focused on creating larger YouTube channels. That's not the purpose of this. However, I do want to help you in whatever way I can. But suffice to say, this is just the amount of money that you will make off of advertisements on your channel, dependent on the niche that you're in and a couple of other factors. But let's just keep that in mind. So when you watch a channel that's, say, a Bionicle YouTuber or something like that, versus when you watch a channel that's focused on cryptocurrency or finances or real estate, or again, these how to make your channel bigger type stuff, right? Even if I had a video with 1,000 views and they had a video with 1,000 views, we would get paid very drastically different. I might make about $1 on 1,000 views on a video. I don't right now. I'm not monetized currently, but that's about the running number for the niche that I'm currently in. Whereas a channel like that could make 5, 10, 15, even 20 or more dollars, because those niches are seen as valuable. And why are they seen as valuable? Because the viewers are the target. It's not about teaching them. It's about exploiting them. It's about getting you to buy something, because oftentimes the people who are looking for this information are in desperate situations. When I have tried to start a YouTube channel in the past, I legitimately thought I could get famous, but only if I knew the right way to do things. And here's the thing. I don't want to be famous. I'm an introvert. I do not care about any of that. But at the time, I was desperate. So I thought to myself, well, I could start a vlogging channel or something like that, which I can't. I don't have an interesting life. And that's not to say I shouldn't create content like that. If I enjoy it, then so be it. That's fine. But looking for this type of information, doing that type of research, doing your research with a specific goal in mind can be a recipe for disaster. And that's kind of what it was here. I was looking for how to make money on YouTube rather than how to make a YouTube channel. And that's often the case for a lot of small creators. Not because we're greedy, not because that's what we want, but because that's what we need. It's because we're in that desperate situation. Many people who start small YouTube channels, who gain small followings, do so out of their passion, but many more also do so because they have no other choice. They don't have money, they don't have resources, but they have a lot of time, and so they turn on a camera and they talk, right? And I cross my fingers that these people do get noticed, that they get recognition, that they continue to improve and get their voice out there, inspire. But the thing is, what bothers me the most about this is that section of people is, you can think of it like a sales funnel, right? Oftentimes, and many people know this, most people know this, in fact, and this is why it's designed this way. When someone attends something like a free seminar, for example, when you walk in that door, you are a potential customer. You're not a student. You're not privy to some enlightened information, but rather, oftentimes, the people presenting the information to you are presenting information that you can find yourself spending the same amount of time that you're spending in that seminar if you were online. But because it's given to you, because you're in this community surrounded by people of like minds, and sometimes even people who are just there to sort of fill seats but are part of the act, right? Oftentimes, the setup like this is intentional because it is about putting you into a high pressure situation and getting you to buy. That's oftentimes why these seminars are often conjoined with some sort of sales pitch at the end of some presenter talking, or have other little side presenters as well, because each of them is getting a little piece of this pie. Everybody in that room is in a desperate situation, or at least most of them are. It is a high volume of desperate people in a small place, in a small amount of time. And that means that if you can get even one of them to open their wallets, you could make a lot of money. It's lucrative. It is the selling of the golden shovel, right? Of the golden shovel? That's not how that goes, but you get my point, right? They try to teach you how to be rich while making money off of your situation. If you were already rich, you wouldn't be there. Take that as a red flag. Now, here's the thing. Desperation is a realistic situation that I think affects more people than you know. I think one of the stigmas of being somebody in a desperate situation is that you feel shame, but it's worth knowing that most people have experienced situations like yours. Maybe not to the same degree, maybe not even in the same way, but have experienced trouble. They have their story, right? So, speaking of stories, one video that I want to make specifically talks about why I think the wholesaling real estate industry is a scam. It's not to say that there's no good that comes from it, because I think you can find good in everything. I just had something in my eye. I wasn't crying that time. But specifically, I've been in a situation in the past where I decided I'm going to make a change myself. I'm going to do the research. And part of me feels bad for this because of the amount of time that I wasted learning this process. But I decided that wholesaling was something I was going to try. And what is wholesaling? Well, essentially, there are three parties. You're the middle party. You're the middleman in this situation. You essentially go out of your way to look for somebody in a desperate situation who basically can't afford their house anymore. And you essentially manipulate them into selling, I'm going to use air quotes when I say that because they're not actually selling you their house, but essentially getting into contract with you to sell their house to you. You don't buy the house though. Here's the thing. So look at it like this. I essentially try to find someone who, say, for example, as a matter of public record, I find out is getting ready to face foreclosure. Because for some silly reason, the U.S. likes to shame people who are in these poor situations as if they are already not struggling with enough problems. But because of that, because these people are often on a public record in many states, in many localities, it's very easy for them to be preyed upon, right? So you might get a call in the middle of the day or the middle of the night, or often, many times a week even, saying, hey, we see that you're getting ready to be foreclosed upon, as if that, pushing that knife in just a little bit further doesn't already stir up the trauma from an event like this. And basically say, you're going to make nothing, but if you want, I'll buy your house in a month. I'll pay you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, right? Say that house is worth $300,000. Well, they look at it like this. At least this is how you want them to look at it. Well, I could make nothing and go get foreclosed in a court publicly, or I could sell the house for $30,000. Yeah, I'm not going to make much money on it because, again, I just sold a $300,000 house for 10% of its price, but at the very least, I'll have something coming out of this. So it's designed to sound like a win-win-win, right? The idea is that when I sign that contract, I basically sell my stake in that contract to another buyer, a cash buyer. And that's how you're able to always see these TV commercials. For example, I'll buy your house for cash, right? Because they're not buying your house. Oftentimes, anyway. Rather, what they're doing is they're just setting themselves up as the middleman. And in order for this to be a business, because this is something you can technically do by yourself, but it's difficult. Rather, what often ends up being the case is that these people establish a corporation, a limited liability corporation. I think that's the right word. Now I'm getting my words confused, but you get my point, right? And oftentimes what'll end up happening is that they'll essentially pawn off the work on other people's so that they're in this sort of managerial position where someone else finds the houses, someone else does the contacting, etc., right? The only thing that you do is basically sign the papers and sell the contract. I feel like I'm getting into a little bit of too much pedantic detail here, but the point is, I agree to buy the house for $10,000. I sell it to the cash buyer for $60,000, let's say. They just bought a $300,000 house for $60,000, so they made a hefty profit. They're happy. I just sold my stake in the contract for $50,000 because it's the difference, right? So I win, but that person still loses. Sure, they might have $10,000, but they had other means. Oftentimes, there are other means to get yourself out of this situation or people who can help. Not always. It is a bad situation for everybody involved, but it is a reality. And instead of telling them that, instead of giving them the truth, presenting them with a realistic situation, I was watching content, again, because I like to do a lot of research when I'm trying to learn something for the first time, and seeing people basically tell you, you need to lie to these people, you need to pretend you've been in this situation, you need to build rapport with them, even if it's fake. Again, you're never going to talk to them again after you've signed that contract. You're done, right? So the whole purpose of this is to manipulate this person into liking you, into trusting you more, and to agreeing to eventually sell you their house, right? This is just one industry. And when you think about it further, people that build an entire business around doing this are doing this to hundreds and hundreds of people. It's disgusting. And it's worse too, because some of the people whose content I was consuming weren't just manipulating sellers, but were even manipulating people within their own industry. And obviously, again, I was consuming their content. They had seminars too. They were making money off of that as well, because every little piece of information to them was a potential to make more money. It wasn't enough to get $50,000 in a contract for a house or more, which these people would often brag about. Whether that's true or not, It was all about turning every single aspect into something profitable. And so they wouldn't make the phone calls. No, they would have a phone bank over in the Philippines. And what was their reason for it? Oh, well, Filipino people just have a harder work ethic. They want to do that job. And here's the thing. No, they don't. They're people just like you and me. That is an excuse to exploit these people. It's just a different form of modern day slavery, if you think about it. I have worked with lovely, lovely people, whether they're American or Filipino. You know what they have in common? Their ability to work hard as hell to get their work done. I can't tell you the amount of people that I met working for retail stores who were some of my favorite workers. And it didn't matter where they came from. You know, nothing was different here. A Filipino person doesn't like being on the phone just as much as an American person. You know, they're lying to you when they say this. But what is their real motivation? Well, they can pay them less over there because of lax labor laws, you know? And obviously there's other stuff that they can get away with too in terms of tax and stuff, but I'm not going to get into any of that. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a financier. So don't take any of that at face, or take all of that rather with a grain of salt, right? Surely I've missed something, but the point is what these people are trying to do is exploit a already desperate population of people. And again, think of it like this too. It's also people they'll never see, never meet. So they get to pull back from it and act like I'm not doing anything bad. I'm supporting people, you know? I'm paying them 10 cents an hour or 20 cents or $2 or whatever. It's never minimum wage. That's the whole point, because it's all about taking as much money for yourself as possible. It's all about turning every single aspect of this business into a form of exploitation of somebody else, right? Again, as I mentioned, these people put themselves into the position of being a manager rather than the actual worker, because they don't want to do the work. They want to wake up and automate all of it and just keep the bulk. I've seen the same thing when looking into real estate as well. Before I learned about what wholesaling was, that was something I was looking into as well. And I was thinking, well, I could get into something like this. And suddenly people were talking about how you could just be or rather you could be a real estate, an owner, right? And you would have property managers, and the property managers would do the work, and you pay them $20 an hour, but they're doing $80 an hour worth of work. You're pocketing the difference. You're pocketing that $60 or whatever. And it's disgusting, because every single time it was all about, you don't actually do anything. You just take the extra money, right? That person, you essentially sign a contract with a company to do something. You then pawn off your job to somebody else, and then you pay them much less. Because you signed the contract for more, you pocket the difference. Like, that's, I don't get it. Morally, this disgusts me. I can't do it. I am the type of person, I don't know if there's a name for this type of empathy, but like I am so afraid of hurting people that, like, when I played sports in school, I sucked. Not because I was bad at the sports, but like if I was playing something like kickball or something, I literally couldn't kick the ball if someone was standing like 10 feet away from me, because I thought, what if there's that off chance that I kick the ball and it goes sideways and hits him in the face, which has happened, and I felt horrible. But that's the type of person that I am. So when I see this type of destructive, predatory behavior, I'm quick to identify it, thankfully. That's not to say I don't fall for it. Of course, we're all human. And these people are so advanced. They're always trying to take advantage of new technologies. Specifically, something I wanted to mention when doing research for the YouTube channel here, when I was looking into milestones, for example, kind of where I should be with certain things, what numbers I should be hitting, etc. I don't like to watch things like TubeBuddy or watch things like vidIQ, but occasionally I check out their videos to see what kind of crap are they, pandering, right? But I usually do so on an incognito window, because I don't want it going into my cookies and then suddenly all of my ads are ads from these companies, right? I'm not buying their crap. But worse is, I don't always open it on an incognito window, because I forget sometimes, right? I have Google or whatever open right there. I click a new tab and I search something and, oh yeah, forgot, duh. Do better next time, whatever. But I've also noticed, though I never search for finance information, anything like that, there is this sort of Venn diagram of commonality between these different industries. And in the middle is scamming, right? Because again, what are the majority of small, what are the majority of people who turn to YouTube as a means to get something out of it, often looking for a way out of the situation they're currently in, right? A way to get to better their situation. And that is also true for people who are often looking for financial information. That's also true for people who are often looking into things like the stock market or cryptocurrency. Whether they know anything about it or not, oftentimes they hear some, pampered news story they don't know is sponsored or something, talking about how NFTs are the next crazy thing or whatever, when half of that crap is kind of catered to look the way it is because it creates a market. And they don't see that they're actually the prey, right? They think that they're getting some valuable information when in reality, they're just wallets in a room. And so what I ended up seeing was a lot of advertisements that were AI specifically. So what I would see, and here, one example of this, I don't watch Joe Rogan. I don't care about their stuff, but I understand they have a massive platform. And because of that platform, because of that visual medium that they use in making their podcasts and making their videos, this advertisement I was seeing would start out with a clip from some segment of Joe Rogan's show. I don't know, but then it would pivot into B-roll. However, the voice would still be Joe Rogan's voice. But no, it's not. It's AI that has been trained on his voice. And all they did was they took that clip from the beginning because it's an easy intro, and it establishes that, okay, this is popular, Joe Rogan guy talking, so I can trust this. And that's already bad enough because he's not the most trustworthy guy in the world in general. But again, because of that large platform, I'm not going to laugh about making that mistake. Anyway, because of that large platform, he has a responsibility, and these people are taking advantage of that, right? Whether or not you agree with him, you can't deny that he's influential, because when you have a platform of that size, you're automatically influencing some portion of your audience. And so when you see advertisements that start with Joe Rogan and suddenly you're like, oh, the government's keeping $6,400 from you, but it's actually yours, it's free, click on whatever, right? That's a scam. Most people know it's a scam. Most people are smart. But it's not catered to most. It's catered to that small minority. Again, it's catered to the people in that room who attended the seminar, right? It's about the sales funnel. Because all they need is one person to click, 2 people to click, 5 people to click. And if they can get that advertisement on a video that has tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of views, your percentage of people who are going to click, who are going to follow through with that ad, well, it just goes up, right? And that's why you see it. YouTube's actually pretty good about catching this kind of stuff. Not perfect by any means, but no service is. And I do think they could improve. I do think they could do better. But at the very least, they're not Facebook. Which I have other stories about. Maybe I'll talk about that in a different video. But suffice to say, that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about in this video. If this is something you guys would like to hear more information about, again, this is unscripted, so I apologize if I was a little bit incoherent for parts of it. I try to get my thoughts in order, but I'm not always perfect. And yeah, other than that, just make sure that you are subscribed if you are subscribed. If not, that's okay. I don't mind. But thank you for watching this far along. And yeah, let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments. And also let me know, too, what other topics you think sort of have a tangential relationship to this. It's hard for me to kind of identify this stuff sometimes, especially right on the spot. But oftentimes I stop recording. I go in the other room like, oh, man, I forgot to mention this thing, which is exactly what happened. That caused me to make this video. But other than that, my Discord and Instagram are found in the description below. If you want to support what it is I do here, you can check out my Patreon, also just in the description. And I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.